Welcome back. There's a lot going on in politics in Florida, and I can't think of anyone better to stumble through the campaign weeds with than Mark Caputo with Politico. Mark, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
You know, it's always a pleasure to just sort of talk politics in general. So let's start with the governor's race. We just had Patrick Murphy on the show. He decided not to run for governor through his support to Gwen Graham. Does it make much of a difference?
Well, it makes a difference because Gwen Graham got great press over it. And donors right now are in that stage of deciding, okay, who's the hot candidate to bet on? And Graham has not been faring so well because Phil Levine, the former Miami Beach mayor, is really steaming ahead. And at this point, Graham's campaign needed a bit of a boost, and she got two on Thursday. She got Patrick Murphy deciding not only he's not going to run for governor, but he's going to endorse her. And she also got the Florida Education Association, the teachers union, to endorse her as well.
Which is actually more powerful. The teachers union endorsement, that actually comes with resources and money behind it, doesn't it?
That can. I think it's an open question to see whether or not the Florida Education Association will play in a Democratic primary. I don't think that they will, but they still could.
The Jeff Green's entry into the race,
or whatever you would call it.
Well, I'll share this. I spoke to Jeff Green. Mm-hmm. You know, I called him up and I just sort of said, you know, because I like to talk to billionaires every once in a while, and I was like, what's going on? I invited him to come on the show, and he said we're still in the exploratory phase. So I don't know what that means exactly, but when a billionaire says he's in an exploratory phase, it sounds like he just wants to spend some money.
I guess. I mean, he's got time. And he's got money, and so he can spend the money and the time. But you really wonder how serious the guy is. So I've spoken to a few consultants who have either spoken to him or spoken to consultants who have spoken to him, and they get the general feeling that A, he's not a pleasant person to work for, and B, he thinks he can buy the election, and C, they all think he's wrong. Now, one of the reasons he might be in the exploratory phase, Jeff Green, is that there might not be any consultants right now who are going to work for him.
Well, he told me right now he hasn't hired anyone. Could that be because he hasn't picked anyone, or nobody has said yes to him?
It could perhaps be both. You know, generally when a billionaire says like, hey, I spent $24 million in 2010. Now I'm going to run again for office.
Right. He ran for Senate in 2010.
Right.
And there's some baggage from that, too. He certainly angered the African-American community. He was seen as sort of a spoiler for Kendrick Meek.
I guess to a degree. But usually when a guy like that comes along, that's like, you know, the honeybees have announced to the bears that, hey, there's a whole big pot of honey here. For some reason, though, none of the consultants are going to buy it.
Which is sort of what my theory has been Chris King's race the entire time. I think there were a lot of Hillary people who were in Florida who thought they were going to go work in the White House, who suddenly didn't have jobs and thought to themselves, well, maybe we'll latch on to this kid and have him spend a lot of money on a governor's race, and that hasn't been going very well.
So far it hasn't been going well according to the polling. I mean, you know, we released a poll on Friday showing that Levine is polling 32% in the primary, and the number 2 candidate, Gwen Graham, is at 16%. Andrew Gillum's at 11%, Chris King's at 6%, Jeff Green is at 4%.
Did the Grahams overestimate the name value? I mean, Bob Graham was a popular governor, popular senator, but a lot of people have moved in and out of Florida since Bob Graham was in office.
I think Gwen Graham has a smart campaign team, and they never thought this was going to be a coronation. But I think what did catch them by surprise is the fact that Philip Levine came in so strong. He's spent almost $11 million on television, and it's working.
Who does, by the way, just to go back for Jeff Green, does he hurt anyone in the race?
Well, it depends on what he does. You know, if he drops a whole pile of money on Philip Levine, that probably hurts him. But, you know, let's kind of see. It's a bizarre launch for a campaign where a guy really doesn't want to comment on his campaign.
So let's talk about the Republican side, because that's a two-person race. You've got Ron DeSantis and you've got Adam Putnam. And there's some breaking news. We're taping this on Friday, and you were feverishly looking at your phone because there's a story out just now by the Tampa Bay Times, which could be somewhat devastating for Adam Putnam.
Right. Adam Putnam in July called himself a proud NRA sellout. And it turns out that his office, which is in charge of regulating concealed weapons permits, failed to do the required background checks to make sure that people getting concealed weapons permits aren't dangerous people. And this problem persisted for a number.
Don't we take their word for it? I mean,
apparently the honor system doesn't work. Like, you know, pinky swears don't cut it when it comes to concealed weapons permits. And the office is saying, well, look, we don't really know how this happened, but we fixed it when we found out the problem. The problem is that the problem apparently persisted for up to a year.
So now, is Adam Putnam still considered the favored candidate in this race? I know Ron DeSantis has got the blessing of the White House. He's got the blessing of President Trump. That knocked out Richard Corcoran. You know, how do you size up this race right now?
I would still think that Adam Putnam is the favored because he's got so much more money than Ron DeSantis. He has a little bit more name ID. But Ron DeSantis is essentially the candidate from Fox News. You can't really turn on Fox News for an entire day without seeing him on there. A really high percentage of pattern primary Republican voters watch Fox News. And again, Ron DeSantis has the endorsement of President Trump, and that makes a difference.
The last time I saw Ron DeSantis, I spoke to him. He agreed to come on this show. We're still waiting for him to walk through the door. I'm sure I'll take that he's good for his word. Let's go to the Senate race. Bill Nelson, Rick Scott. You know, Rick Scott, for no matter, even though given the mood of the year and the feeling that it might be an anti-Trump sort of wave election, Rick Scott's out there. He's hustling. He's punching. He's doing what he needs to do. And I keep wondering, where's Bill Nelson?
Well, a lot of Democrats are also wondering where Bill Nelson is as well. And, you know, it comes as no surprise to anyone who's watched Rick Scott's career that when he decides to do something, especially a campaign, he goes in whole hog. And boy, he has. I think he's already dropped about $13 million on television between him, his super PAC, and some of his allies. And it's a multi-dimensional campaign. He's campaigning in English and in Spanish. He's in the Puerto Rican community. Like, this is generally the Puerto Rican community a bastion for Democratic votes, or at least Democrats view it that way. And Rick Scott right now is playing on Bill Nelson's half of the field. Using
his power as governor. Suddenly, we're donating a whole, like almost 24 Florida Highway Patrol vehicles to Puerto Rico. That gets good press in Puerto Rico. That translates to good press in the Orlando area for him as well.
Right. One thing we should note is that President Trump's approval rating among a lot of Puerto Ricans is abysmal. I mean, it's horrendous.
And it's one of the few areas where Governor Scott has broken with the president in saying he doesn't think he did necessarily a very good job.
Well, I don't think he's been that clear about it. And when asked if he would have done anything differently when he was in Puerto Rico on a 6th visit, Governor Scott was unable to answer the question. He said he didn't know.
I want to turn to what's going on in the congressional races. Is Donna Shalala just a runaway train at this point? Will she be the Democratic nominee? Can David Richardson or any of the other candidates really stop that from happening?
You know, I've made enough wrong predictions to know that I'm not going to predict a winner this many months out. But it's safe to say that Donna Shalala, she's got like a double-digit lead in almost every poll that's been taken of the race. She's really difficult to beat. I mean, she's not only well known in the Clinton world, but she was the University of Miami president. And this district that she's in, the 27th, encompasses the University of Miami.
I wonder when Bill Clinton steps in it again, as he did this past week, with regard to Monica Lewinsky and that agitated interview, does it just not make a lot of people go, ick, and enough with the Clintons? And does Shalala fall under that bandwagon as well? Or is that district so pro-Clinton that they don't really see it that way?
I mean, Hillary Clinton won that district by about 20 points, so it's difficult to see Clinton being that deadly of a name or that bad of a brand. You also have to remember that Hillary Clinton won that district, and Donna Shalala can certainly lay claim to being part of the broader Clinton world, not just a sock puppet for Bill Clinton.
We've got a minute left. Somebody else who's running a very smart race, although there may be a little cynicism here too. Carlos Curbelo. He's moving. You say you can't open up Fox without seeing DeSantis. I can't go on MSNBC or CNN without seeing Carlos Curbelo talking about the immigration and trying to get the DACA thing to the floor of the House. This is never going to make it to the president's desk, but it's good politics for Carlos Curbelo.
Right, and I also think that in Curbelo's case, he's actually serious about doing it. But, for years he was part of that Republican contingent who kept denying that Republicans were the stumbling block for immigration reform. Newsflash, they are. He can't even get 25 Republicans to sign on to a discharge petition, a procedural motion to just get an immigration vote on the floor.
I remember he said, I'm for Paul Ryan now, tomorrow, in 2020. He was all in for Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan turned out to be his stumbling block. Does he regret that support of Paul Ryan?
That's a good question. I mean, Paul Ryan just has congenitally not told the truth in his entire career. He didn't want to be the House Speaker. Now he's the House Speaker. He's the budget hawk. Now we have record deficits. He was going to do something with immigration reform. He won't even allow a discharge petition to bring something to the floor. Paul Ryan doesn't tell the truth.
All right, Mark Caputo, it always goes quick whenever I have you in the studio. Thank you very much. Okay, up next, the dulcet tones of US 1 Radio's Bill Becker when we come back.